Many times people look at us and say, well, you're just in session from February through May. And they don't see us working year-round. But the budget process is actually year-round. So today I want to talk a little bit about the budget process. Oklahoma is unique by our Constitution, Article 10, Section 23, that requires a balanced budget. And that didn't happen when we became a state. Matter of fact, it didn't happen until 1941. But it's a good thing for the state of Oklahoma. It pushes us to make sure that we can't spend more than what we're bringing in, and that's a good thing. And so the process begins with revenues that are certified by the Board of Equalization. And of course, on that board is comprised of the governor, the lieutenant governor, the state auditor and inspector, the treasurer, the attorney general, the superintendent of instruction, and the president of the State Board of Agriculture. And so they'll meet 3 times a year. Those 3 times a year, they'll meet in December and they'll give us a number. They'll come back in February and give us a number, and that's the one we actually budget off of, is that February number. And then they'll come back in June and for the certification. So when we begin to look at the budget, we can only budget up to about 95%, or it's limited to 95% of what that projected revenue is going to be. And so any revenue collected that exceeds that certified estimate is deposited into our rainy day fund. And that rainy day fund is constitutionally capped at 15% of the prior year's general revenue fund collection. And so the rainy day fund can be used under a number of conditions. And of course, last year was a hard year for us. And so a lot of folks ask, what's our balance today in the rainy day fund? It's just a little over $58 million. So the rainy day fund can be used under only the following conditions. 3/8 of the fund can be used if the general revenue fund fails to meet the estimate in the current fiscal year. 3/8 of the fund can be used if the general revenue fund is projected to decline from one year to the next. 1/4 of the fund can be used if there's an emergency declaration by the governor and a 2/3 vote of the Senate and the House. Or the same 1/4 can be used without the governor's declaration if there's a 3/4 vote by the Senate and the House of Representatives. The Board of Equalization will also give us other certified funds, like the 1017 fund, of how much money would be in there. So there's other revolving funds they do not do that with as the legislature begins to write the budget. So let's walk through the process just for a moment. The state's fiscal year begins on July 1, ends on June 30th of the next year. So on July 1, as the new fiscal year begins, the agencies do their work. So July through October, they formulate their budget program, budget limits, and those budget limit bills that were set by the legislature in the preceding legislative session. And agencies begin formulating the budget requests that they will present for the next legislative session. Those are due by October the 1st. This year, because of COVID and a few other things, we allowed some of the agencies to wait until November 1 to be able to turn those in. But in November, the appropriations subcommittees began their analysis of the agency program performance measures and began filing related reports. They are individuals there that says, we want to, as a committee, go back in and look at those agencies. And so in December, the Board of Equalization, as I mentioned in our opening comments, meets for an initial certification. In February, that board gives us the real number that we begin to work with. And then February through April, our supplemental appropriations are considered for the current fiscal year. And we have several requests for this year already of supplementals that are coming in. Our subcommittees hold budget hearings. In the Senate, we have 6 subcommittees. They're Education, Health and Human Services, Public Safety, Select Agencies, Tourism and Natural Resources, and then the 6th is General Government and Transportation. And so as the Appropriations Chair, I meet with the subcommittee chairs every week. And so we talk about the budget process, but also they report back to this particular office. And then late April to early May, they begin to get their reports into us, and what they look at would be a good budget for those agencies. And then, of course, they're working with their counterparts, and then I work with my counterpart in the House, and we begin to formulate the budget. In May, the legislature begins filing the appropriation bills, and if we're able to complete the budget while we're still in session, the governor has 5 days to sign or veto a bill, or it becomes law without his or her signature. If the bill is passed during the last week of session, the governor has 15 days to sign it, or it becomes a pocket veto. And session must end constitutionally on the last Friday in May. So in June, the Board of Equalization meets again to certify any changes to certification as a result of legislation that was signed into law, and to certify that the legislature did not exceed its appropriation authority. And then June 30th, the fiscal year ends, and then July 1, we start all over again. So as Appropriations Chair, I'm here year-round and dealing with agencies, dealing with their budgets, and seeing what we're going to do with the challenges that we are looking at for the next fiscal year.